The 10,000 Pills Gathering is the largest alchemist convention in the Great Thousand Worlds. The alchemists who come to participate in the event are all well-known figures in the realm, and here, all the high-level alchemists will demonstrate their most profound pill-making techniques. In the Heavenly Spirit Dimension, the ongoing 10,000 Pills Gathering, which spans 2 years and provides unlimited medicinal materials, has already passed several months. Unlike the initial phase of blind exploration, as time goes by, information about various medicinal herbs has circulated through the mouths of tens of thousands, spreading across the Heavenly Spirit Dimension. Although the herbs that have been circulated are still less than 1/10 of the millions of herbs in this dimension, almost all participants are willing to share the locations of herbs they have encountered. This isn't out of goodwill, but rather a tacit understanding of mutual cooperation. At this moment, on a vast medicinal herb continent, a figure streaked across the sky like a bolt of lightning. With a palm infused with terrifying power, he struck a gigantic beast, and with the explosion of force, the massive creature was sent flying high into the sky. Boom! However, just as the beast was sent soaring, the ground beneath suddenly began to shake violently. Hundreds, even thousands, of massive figures formed an endless tidal wave of destruction, rushing from all directions. These were over 1,000 equally fearsome beasts. The 1,000 beasts, rushing from all directions, surrounded a figure. The one who had just struck the beast into the air, Xiao. In the months since entering the Heavenly Spirit Dimension, Xiao has been searching for 7 high-level medicinal herbs to refine a mystic pill. He has already located 3 of them, and now he is here for the 4th, Ancient Barbaric Essence. The so-called Ancient Barbaric Essence is formed from the bone marrow of ancient barbaric beasts, where spiritual energy condenses over a century. It is also a rare and valuable material. However, once the beast dies, the essence will dissolve and disappear into the world within a month. Hence, it is generally only obtainable from living ancient barbaric beasts. After hearing about the presence of ancient barbaric beasts, Xiao spent nearly half a month traveling to this land, which is inhabited by thousands of such beasts. Initially, he intended to quietly take one down, but unexpectedly, his actions triggered a siege by over 1,000 of them. Despite being a second-grade supreme, Xiao felt a chill run down his spine as the beasts surrounded him. Seeing the approaching tide of beasts, Xiao knew the situation was dire, but he would not sit idly by. In a flash, he leaped thousands of feet into the sky, appearing beside the ancient barbaric beast he had just sent flying. Whoosh! With a wave of his hand, a red light flashed, and a blade approximately half a meter long appeared in Xiao's hand. As his palm gripped the hilt, a powerful spiritual energy radiated from the blade. This was a high-grade divine artifact, one of the protective weapons provided to Xiao and his 8 companions by Long Yuan when they left the Do domain world. Holding a high-grade divine artifact, Xiao faced the ancient barbaric beast, which was falling toward the ground. In the next instant, a streak of blood illuminated the sky as blood splattered from the beast's palm. Xiao's strike had cleanly severed the beast's finger as if it were cutting tofu. Despite being just a finger, the sheer size of the ancient barbaric beast meant the severed finger was still nearly 100 feet long. Boom! As the finger fell, a pink flame erupted from Xiao's body. This was the pure lotus demon flame. Even before the Do domain world was born, various unusual flames existed not only in the Do Chi continent, but also in other fragmentary worlds. The pure lotus demon flame was a flame Xiao refined during his time as a Do Sheng. The flame erupted like a massive mouth, swallowing the severed finger of the ancient barbaric beast. The terrifying heat immediately vaporized the flesh, leaving only a dried-up bone. As the bone melted, a dark liquid flowed from it, catching Xiao's attention. Xiao gazed at the flowing ancient barbaric essence, then looked below at the ever-growing number of ancient barbaric spiritual beasts gathering. Without hesitation, he withdrew the pure lotus demon flame, and the cluster of ancient barbaric spiritual beasts wrapped in it, which was as large as several heads combined, was quickly stored in a space jade vial. Having secured the essence, Xiao naturally wasn't planning to engage with the increasing number of ancient barbaric spiritual beasts below. He slapped his palm and sent one of the beasts, whose finger had been severed, hurtling downwards. Then, with a swift movement, he prepared to use his advantage of height to leave the area. However, just as Xiao moved to leave, a shadow, several thousand zhang in size, suddenly enveloped him from above. In an instant, a dangerous wave of energy reached Xiao's senses. Realizing the imminent threat, Xiao quickly turned his head to look behind him. As he did, a massive hand carrying terrifying power descended from above. Boom! Before Xiao could react, the giant hand struck him directly. The force that came from it made Xiao's expression change instantly, as it was clear the power had already reached the level of the supreme stage. Boom! Boom! The terrifying force blasted Xiao from the sky. His body plummeted like a cannonball, crashing into the ground. In that moment, the earth collapsed, and a massive pit, several thousand zhang in size, formed. The surrounding ancient barbaric spiritual beasts quickly scattered, fearing they might be caught in the blast. Whoosh! Dust and smoke billowed from the massive pit, and a disheveled figure slowly climbed up from the bottom. Clearly, that sudden blow had taken a toll on Xiao. Damn it! What was that? Climbing out of the pit, Xiao immediately looked up at the sky, wanting to see what had attacked him. Soon, a towering figure, several thousand zhang in height, entered his view. This figure resembled the other ancient barbaric spiritual beasts, but was clearly different. Behind it, two enormous wings, several thousand zhang wide, spread out. To think, it's the ancient barbaric spiritual beast king. After recognizing the massive figure, Xiao finally confirmed the identity of the creature that had attacked him. The so-called ancient barbaric spiritual beast king was a mutated form among the ancient barbaric spiritual beasts. After undergoing such a mutation, the beast's power would increase exponentially. The strongest among them could rival a 5th-grade supreme expert. Although the one Xiao faced was not the strongest mutated beast, it still possessed terrifying strength comparable to a peak 2nd-grade supreme expert. How did these guys find me so quickly? So there's a leader. Xiao now understood why, despite being cautious, he was still detected. These creatures were essentially trained and had been waiting for someone like him to arrive. Roar! The ancient barbaric spiritual beast king, descending from the sky, let out a deafening roar that echoed across the land. It was summoning the 6,000 ancient barbaric spiritual beasts under its command to encircle Xiao. Big guy, I've already got what I came for. The time for the 10,000 pills gathering is too precious. I don't have time to play with you. Standing in the giant pit, Xiao looked up at the ancient barbaric spiritual beast king and then glanced at the surrounding beasts. He grinned, and a surge of vast spiritual energy erupted from his body. Swish! Using all his spiritual energy, Xiao shot off at lightning speed toward the distant sky. His speed was so fast that he covered thousands of zhang in an instant. However, as Xiao sped away, the ancient barbaric spiritual beast king unfolded its giant wings. With a single flap, it crossed nearly 10,000 zhang of sky, moving even faster than Xiao. Boom! Boom! As the ancient barbaric spiritual beast king surged forward, the surrounding ancient barbaric spiritual beasts followed like an overwhelming army, charging in the same direction. Swish! Xiao pushed his speed to the limit, and in just a few dozen breaths, he had already traveled over 1,000 miles from the giant pit. However, at that moment, the ancient barbaric spiritual beast king, having caught up, immediately slammed a palm toward him. Due to the added speed, the power of the strike was terrifying, enough to make even a 3rd-grade supreme expert feel a sense of dread. Boom! The enormous palm, as fast as lightning, struck Xiao before he could react. The terrifying force blasted him apart, disintegrating him in an instant. However, just as the ancient barbaric spiritual beast king crushed Xiao with that palm, a figure emerged from the sand and dirt thousands of miles away, rising from the bottom of the giant pit. With a body that big, you'd think the brain would be smarter. Xiao glanced at the distant sky. There, The person who was just obliterated by the barbaric ancient spirit beast king was actually just a substitute formed by Yao Xian's spiritual power. Normally, someone like him, a second-grade supreme, wouldn't be able to perform such a technique. However, the Dragon Yuan at the heavenly supreme level had passed on this method to them as a life-saving skill. After brushing off the dust from his clothes, Yao Xian immediately moved in the opposite direction of the barbaric ancient spirit beast king, flying away. After a few flashes, he vanished into the horizon. At the same time, several million miles away, near another medicinal continent, a colossal tree hundreds of thousands of feet tall stood tall above an endless sea. The tree's roots were mostly buried underwater, while the parts visible above the surface formed huge platforms, resembling islands. The tree was so massive that it could be seen within a radius of 1,000,000 miles. Beneath the giant tree, hundreds of figures were gathered. These people were clearly participants of the 10,000 Pills gathering. However, they were not here for the medicinal herbs they needed. None of the alchemists could recognize this tree. The enormous tree, which cast a shadow over a vast area, bore strange black fruits. Each fruit was about the size of a fist and had a perfectly spherical shape. What drew passers-by's attention was the bizarre nature of these fruits. Whenever someone looked at these black fruits, each fruit gave off an overwhelming sense of vastness, as if an infinite world resided within it. As a result, some strong individuals had attempted to destroy one of the fruits, only to find that the infinite sensation immediately stopped once the fruit was destroyed. The alchemists present were all more experienced than ordinary people. Within the first few months of the 10,000 Pills gathering, thousands, even more, had passed through here. Yet, only a handful could recognize the giant tree and its fruit. Most of the discussion among the crowd was filled with shaking heads, as no one had ever heard of such a tree before. Because the fruit was so strange and no one had ever heard of it, the visitors began calling it the Fruit of Infinity, and the giant tree was directly named the Tree of Infinity. Yi Yan and Bei Mingming had originally come to this area to search for the herbs they needed. However, after hearing about the Tree of Infinity, their curiosity led them here to take a look. Once they arrived, the shock of the giant tree was indeed as overwhelming as the rumors described. "What a strange tree!" Yi Yan exclaimed as she gazed at the Tree of Infinity, standing with Bei Mingming on a small island, which was actually one of the giant roots of the tree. "This great thousand world really has everything. In our Do domain, the biggest tree should be the Bodhi ancient tree, but compared to this Tree of Infinity, it's only about 1/10 its size," Bei Mingming sighed. "I heard earlier that not only us, but even the senior alchemists from the Great Thousand World can't recognize this tree," Yi Yan said. "What's so strange about it? To us, the Do domain is already vast beyond imagination, and the Great Thousand World is hundreds or even thousands of times larger. In such a vast world, there are countless strange plants that no one knows about. Who dares to claim they recognize every tree in the Great Thousand World?" Bei Mingming replied. "True," Yi Yan nodded, then waved her hand at Bei Mingming. "Let's go. This has nothing to do with us. We need to focus on finding the herbs we need." Bei Mingming nodded, and the two of them quickly moved off, heading toward the distant horizon. However, what Yi Yan and Bei Mingming didn't know was that, after they left, two figures arrived from the opposite side of the sky and landed at the spot where they had been standing. One of the newcomers was a middle-aged man, and the other a young man. Like everyone else, they had come here for the Tree of Infinity, but unlike the other participants, they were among the few in the heavenly spirit dimension who actually recognized this tree. I initially thought it was a rumor, but I didn't expect the Pill God clan and the ancient myriad grass plains to have the guts to go this far." The middle-aged man stared at the towering tree, his expression grave. "Thousands of years ago, they started using the blood of my True Phoenix clan and True Dragon clan to supply others for pill refinement, and now their target has shifted to your primordial divine clan. The Pill God clan and the ancient myriad grass plains are just jumping insects. Do they really think that because they have a weapon capable of destroying everything, my primordial divine clan would dare not act against them?" The young man snorted coldly, his eyes filled with murderous intent as he looked at the tree. If it weren't for the fear of causing internal chaos within the Great Thousand World, and that the extraterritorial clans might seize the opportunity to invade, my primordial divine clan would use everything we have to erase these two races. The blood of the true dragon and true phoenix is the highest honor of our clan, never to be shared. Yet they use it as material for pill refinement. This Maha divine tree is one of your primordial divine clan's most prized treasures, a secret artifact, yet they've now openly displayed it for all to see in the Great Thousand World. The middle-aged man shouted angrily. This is practically a declaration of war on us two great alliances, isn't it? Elder Feng Huang, after the 10,000 pills gathering ends, please represent my primordial divine clan and inform the various races of the Myriad Spirits Alliance about our plan to join forces in handling the threats posed by the Pill God clan and the ancient Myriad Grass Plains, the young man said. The second world-ending war could erupt at any moment. Of course, if we have external threats and internal strife at the same time, the consequences would be unimaginable, said the middle-aged man. We'll settle that score with them later. For now, we should focus on completing our task, said the young man, then looked around at the world around him. Although I don't know how they managed to get their hands on the seeds of the Maha divine tree, there's definitely something strange about its location. Yes, the growth of the Maha divine tree requires an immense amount of energy from the heavens and earth. Although it's still in its growing phase, its roots must have already spread beneath the sea, covering millions of miles. It's probably absorbing all the surrounding medicinal lands as nutrients for its growth, said the middle-aged man. So, in reality, all the medicinal herbs within these millions of miles are subpar, because most of the energy has been forcefully siphoned by the Maha divine tree, leaving the other plants without the energy they need to grow. Hearing this, the young man smirked. There were still countless people greedily harvesting the so-called coveted medicinal herbs from the hundreds of medicinal continents around them, but they probably had no idea that these herbs were growing with a serious energy deficit. After several months of investigation, the Earth Spirit Array in the Heavenly Spirit Dimension should be buried deep underground. So, the method proposed by some elders in the clan to flatten the dimension won't have any impact on this array, the young man said. Also, due to the sheer size of the Heavenly Spirit Dimension, even someone with power comparable to an Earth Supreme Expert at great perfection would never be able to destroy this lower dimension. If we could really destroy such a vast lower dimension, the clan leader wouldn't have had to pick us, those who are highly skilled in spiritual arrays, and sneak us in during the 10,000 pills gathering, the middle-aged man added. We have about 20 months left. During this time, we must fully investigate and understand the structure of the Earth Spirit Array. Once we know its shape and the array's patterns, any spiritual array can be cracked, no matter how powerful it is. The young man nodded, then looked up once more at the towering Maha divine tree, its immense trunk stretching high into the sky. In a flash, both he and the middle-aged man disappeared into the world, and as time passed, a month went by. 1 month later, at the edge of the Heavenly Spirit Dimension, on a rather desolate and remote continent, a man in a black robe sat cross-legged with his eyes closed. It had been several months since he had discussed matters with Dan Yu and Gao Yuan in the deep space of the Heavenly Spirit Dimension and joined the Domain Guardian plan. During this time, Xiao Yin had been staying on this remote continent. Not all the continents in the Heavenly Spirit Dimension were used for cultivating medicinal herbs. Outside of the millions of medicinal continents, there were some desolate lands left unused. The continent where Xiao Yin was currently located was one such land. Not far from him, there were over 10 similar abandoned lands. However, what was strange was that 2 of these landmasses were charred black, with intense heat emanating from them, clearly showing signs that they had recently been burned. Sitting cross-legged, Xiao Yin slowly opened his eyes and sighed. "Looks like it doesn't work after all," Xiao Yin murmured as he gazed at the 2 charred landmasses before him. Over the past few months, Xiao Yin had been researching the so-called heaven refining technique. This was the highest level of alchemy, the 3rd stage of the alchemist's path, and one Xiao Yin had never encountered before. As for his previous alchemy skills, during his time in the Douqi world, with a mentor like Yao Lao, Xiao Yin had already reached a high level. He had spent at least 10 years of the Battle of the Twin Emperors researching imperial-grade pills. As for the human-level techniques, before the start of the 10,000 pills gathering, Xiao had also made great progress in the Nine Valleys realm over several years of continuous study. The army of clones formed from pills was one of his greatest achievements. But now, everything was different. The heaven refining technique was a completely new way of alchemy, far removed from anything Xiao had practiced before. The materials it required were no longer a few medicinal herbs, but rather the very essence of heaven and earth, used to refine a super pill. A pill that contained an entire world within it. The pill might be no bigger than a longan seed, but inside it would contain a vast world. This was Xiao dilemma. How to compress an entire world into something as small as a longan seed. Several months ago, when Xiao decided to study the heaven refining technique, he didn't ask Dan Yu or Gao Yuan for any details on the matter. For some unknown reason, although both Dan Yu and Gao Yuan wanted Xiao to master the technique, neither of them proactively shared any relevant information with him. As a result, Xiao found himself in a situation where he had no choice but to rely on his own insights to research the intricacies of the heaven refining technique. This was essentially starting from scratch without any guidance. Moreover, the appearance of the Domain Guardian plan disrupted Xiao original pill refining plans within the heavenly spirit dimension. After crossing millions of miles to reach this place, Xiao spent several months pondering over the heaven refining technique. What exactly is the heaven refining technique? The heaven refining technique is the art of refining heaven and earth. To refine heaven and earth, one needs a piece of heaven and earth as material. Since heaven and earth cannot be conjured from thin air, Xiao made use of the surrounding abandoned landmasses, using them as materials for his heavenly creation. When refining the first piece of heaven and earth, Xiao used his celestial power to lift a vast landmass, several tens of thousands of miles wide, from the seabed, turning it into a massive floating island. Looking back now, Xiao found his actions somewhat amusing, as he had used the imperial flame to roast the landmass. It was truly a desperate measure, which wasted him a month. However, after burning the landmass with his imperial flame, Xiao suddenly had an inspiration. He immediately used the same celestial power to move another landmass from not far away. For the second landmass, although Xiao also used his imperial flame, he didn't directly roast it as before. Instead, he first spent nearly 3 days creating a vast spatial world, tens of thousands of miles in size, and then placed the landmass into this created space, turning it into a barely qualified low-level dimension. After spending several days creating a low-level dimension, Xiao then condensed a dimension embryo within it. What Xiao did next was to indirectly refine that dimensional space, turning the dimension embryo into a pill. Regarding the refinement of the dimension embryo, since it was impossible to compress the space itself, Xiao compressed the dimension embryo instead. He once again used his imperial flame, alongside various powers of the heavenly fires, constantly modifying the roughly head-sized dimension embryo. This process took Xiao nearly 2 months. However, to his surprise, no matter how he tried to refine it, the dimension embryo showed no signs of shrinking. Furthermore, Xiao strength had already reached the heavenly supreme level, meaning that any slight fluctuation in his power would have a destructive effect on the dimensional space. In the end, due to a slight misstep on Xiao part, the second landmass, along with the dimensional space, was destroyed. 2 failures had led to the destruction of 2 landmasses. Although these were discarded landmasses, they hadn't brought Xiao any progress or clues. It seemed that the heaven refining technique was simply an impossible task, but Xiao didn't give up. Such a superlative pill refining technique was rare even in the Great Thousand Worlds, and if he could master it within a few months, it would be far too easy. However, Xiao knew that his remaining time was only about 20 months. If he had enough time, he was confident that he could perfect the technique, but with less than 2 years, it would be incredibly difficult. Incredibly difficult, yet not impossible. With this thought in mind, Xiao spent the following days reorganizing his thoughts, trying to find a new path to master the heaven refining technique. Yet, during these days, as usual, Xiao made no progress. He even had the 30 fire spirits within him help him contemplate. But the result was that the fire spirits were even more confused than Xiao Yin. Everything seemed to return to square one, as if Xiao Yin hadn't even taken the first step. Sitting cross-legged at the top of a mountain at the edge of a landmass, Xiao Yin gazed at the vast sea before him. He knew that while the sea appeared boundless, it was, in fact, finite. And though he hadn't yet grasped the heaven refining technique, he believed that once he found the right direction, he would eventually reach his goal. It seems the direction is wrong, Xiao Yin muttered, staring at the endless ocean. Then, with a flick of his hand, a spirit jade appeared before him. This spirit jade was a special privilege granted to Xiao Yin by Danyu before entering the heavenly spirit dimension several months ago. It contained all the information and locations of the medicinal materials within the heavenly spirit dimension. I wonder how they are doing now? Looking at the spiritual jade in his hand, Xiao Yin suddenly thought of Yao Xian and the 8 others. These top alchemists from the Do domain were likely still scurrying around, searching for the medicinal materials he needed. As Xiao Yin pondered the situation of Yao Xian and the others, his hand clenched the spiritual jade. He knew that he couldn't immediately find the correct way to control the heavenly refining technique. If he kept thinking about it, he might not find an answer. Rather than continuing to dwell on it, Xiao Yin decided to relax. The spiritual jade, which contained information about the medicinal materials from the heavenly spirit dimension, would be a good way to unwind. Although Xiao Yin had already studied the million medicinal materials record in the Nine Valleys realm and was familiar with the millions of recorded materials, he wasn't sure if there were any new materials in the heavenly spirit dimension that hadn't been included in the record. After all, the million medicinal materials record was an ancient text from 1,000 years ago. Bang! As Xiao Yin crushed the spiritual jade, the information it contained poured into his sea of memory like a spring. His heavenly soul consciousness also gradually sank into the sea of memory to browse through the medicinal material information recorded in the jade. Xiao Yan's consciousness floated within his sea of memory. He observed the medicinal material information that entered. Although the number of items was in the millions, it would have taken him a long time to digest them in the past. However, now he found it quite effortless because more than 99% of the information was already known to him. The so-called new materials probably didn't even account for 1,000th. Still, Xiao Yin continued browsing through the materials. As an alchemist, the more he knew about medicinal materials, the better. According to the 1,000th ratio, the spiritual jade could still bring him nearly 1,000 new materials that he was unaware of. With this mindset, Xiao Yin spent the next 4 days scouring his sea of memory for new materials. In those 4 days, he managed to look through nearly 2/3 of the information and discovered over 600 new materials. He planned to speed up and finish the last third on the 5th day. Afterward, he would return to his research on the heavenly refining technique, as he knew what needed to be prioritized. However, on the 5th day, while browsing through the remaining third of the new materials, one peculiar item caught his attention, causing him to slow down his rapid browsing. Maha Divine Tree, the symbol of the Maha Divine Clan, its Maha Heart, which can be used to cultivate the Maha Great Light, or create and destroy worlds. Xiao Yan's consciousness paused as he stared at the text floating in his sea of memory. It seemed like he was contemplating something. Then, without hesitation, he abandoned his search of the remaining new materials and withdrew his consciousness from the memory sea back to the heavenly spirit dimension. Maha Heart? Xiao Yin muttered softly, as if a realization struck him. The next moment, he stood up and immediately moved, soaring toward the distant horizon. Over the vast, endless sea, scattered with islands made of medicinal material continents, figures darted between them. These were participants of the 10,000 Pills gathering, and since it was still in the early stages of the event, most of them were busy searching for the materials they needed. Whoosh! In a certain part of the vast sea, the space twisted and a figure appeared. Xiao Yin, having arrived, surveyed the surrounding world. His gaze soon fixed on a distant point, and in an instant, he moved again, crossing the sky. Xiao Yan's strength far surpassed that of the other participants in the 10,000 Pills gathering, making his speed terrifying and almost unbelievable. In the blink of an eye, he could cover tens of thousands of miles. The distance from the edge of the heavenly spirit dimension to the location of the Maha divine tree was over 200 million miles. Such a vast distance would normally take an ordinary supreme expert 2 months to traverse, but Xiao only needed several dozen minutes. Is this the Maha divine tree? Xiao muttered softly as he gazed at the massive tree in the distance, which seemed to tower beyond the horizon, thousands of miles away. Despite the distance, its immense size was undeniable. With his perception at the heavenly soul level, Xiao could clearly see the vast expanse of the sea below, where countless entities extended from the Maha divine tree, their coverage reaching over 100,000 miles. Based on the information he had gathered earlier, Xiao knew this tree was only a century old, still in its early growth stages. There was another reason for Xiao astonishment upon seeing the Maha divine tree. He now realized that such a tree was unique to the Maha divine clan in the Great Thousand Worlds. The significance of this tree to the Maha divine clan was likely as crucial as the Buddha God's tower to the Buddha God clan. Yet here it was, standing in this heavenly spirit dimension. It seemed that the Pill God clan and the ancient Myriad Grass Plains had not only offended the Myriad Spirit Divine clan, but they were also on the verge of antagonizing the Primordial Divine clan. Fortunately, not many people in the heavenly spirit dimension knew the true origins of this tree, nor did they understand how to use the heart of Maha on it. Of course, Xiao was among those unaware of its purpose. Xiao had come here because of 4 words mentioned in the information he had previously received: opening heaven and earth. With a flash, Xiao appeared beneath the towering Maha divine tree, thousands of miles from where he had been. The tree was one of the wonders of this heavenly spirit dimension, attracting many people who passed by, curious to stop and observe. Most were merely onlookers, but after Xiao appeared, a few individuals near the tree began to take notice, mistaking him for another passerby. However, when Xiao flew toward the top of the Maha divine tree, he drew the attention of several onlookers. After approaching one of the hearts of Maha, Xiao began carefully studying it. His actions intrigued those nearby, who wondered if he knew what kind of tree this was. Xiao peculiar behavior caused those who had originally planned to leave after a brief glance to stay and watch. They were all eager to see what Xiao intended to do. Under the gaze of the crowd, Xiao, after a few minutes of contemplation, finally made a move. He reached out toward the heart of Maha. From his gesture, most of the onlookers understood that Xiao was about to pick the fruit. However, some who had been here before were worried, as Xiao was not the first to attempt to do so, and those who tried before had failed. Once the heart of Maha was plucked, its infinite aura would vanish, and the fruit would become just like any other ordinary one. However, to everyone's surprise, when Xiao extended his hand toward the heart of Maha, the first thing he picked was not the fruit, but a large black leaf beside it. The black leaf was about half a yard long, a substantial size compared to the heart of Maha. As soon as Xiao plucked the leaf, a brilliant flame surged from his hand, imperial flame. The moment the flame appeared, the temperature of the surrounding environment spiked noticeably. Such a powerful flame. This flame's strength must be able to rival the top 30 flames on the 100 million flames ranking. You haven't seen it in action. This intensity is enough to place it in the top 20. The appearance of the imperial flame caused a stir among the observers below, who, after their initial shock, immediately turned their attention to Xiao. Could it be that a powerful flame was needed to assist in removing the heart of Maha? The strength of this flame, they thought, might be enough to vaporize the heart of Maha in an instant. However, Xiao imperial flame was not intended for the heart of Maha, but for the black leaf. The imperial flame in his hand expanded rapidly and engulfed the black leaf in a flash. As the imperial flame devoured the black leaf, Xiao gaze became extraordinarily sharp. He watched as the black leaf twisted under the fiery embrace, burned, and ultimately turned into a wisp of black smoke. The entire process only took a moment, but Xiao saw it all clearly. In that last moment, when the black smoke dissipated, Xiao distinctly caught a fleeting instance. Within the range covered by the black smoke, space seemed to tear apart for an instant. The area within the smoke became chaotic, as if time and space were no longer stable. As expected, Xiao murmured, his eyes narrowing in understanding. He waved his hand, and the imperial flame, which had just turned the black leaf to ashes, rapidly expanded again, transforming into a massive fire cauldron that stretched several hundred meters wide. Once the cauldron was formed, Xiao raised his other hand and tore open a spatial rift in the air. Swish, swish, swish. As Xiao tore open the rift, countless figures swarmed out like locusts. From the rift, thousands of figures surged forth. They were the Pill Spirit Army Xiao had previously forged in the Nine Valleys realm. Wow, this army? Is this the Battle Intent Army? How is that possible? Is he an alchemist or a battle formation master? No, this isn't a Battle Intent Army. It looks more like an army of pills. An army of pills? Are these people made of pills? Who exactly is he? When Xiao summoned the 1,000-strong Pill Spirit Army from the heavenly tomb, the crowd below erupted into a wave of astonishment. To form an army from high-level spirit pills was simply unbelievable, and Xiao actions raised even more questions. What did he intend to do with them? Swish, swish, swish. In midair, the Pill Spirit Army, summoned by Xiao from the heavenly tomb, spread out in all directions, heading toward the vast Maha divine tree. Xiao calmly sat before the fire cauldron formed by the imperial flame, awaiting their return. After about 10 minutes of waiting, the army finally returned, but they brought something else with them. It was millions of black leaves, plucked from the Maha divine tree. Some leaves were as large as 100 meters, while others were only about 10 meters long. Xiao had originally intended to strike the tree with his palm to shake off the leaves, making it easier to collect them, but during his recent probe with the heavenly soul, he discovered that the connection between the Maha hearts on the tree and the tree itself was highly unstable. A slight tremor could destroy them all, so he had to resort to the Pill Spirit Army. Meanwhile, as the Pill Spirit Army delivered the millions of black leaves, the crowd below grew even more curious. What did Xiao need these leaves for? Crash. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the black leaves brought by the Pill Spirit Army were all thrown into the fire cauldron formed by the imperial flame. The sheer number of leaves was so vast that the fire cauldron was filled to the brim. Even the terrifying heat of the imperial flame struggled to evaporate them all in a short time. After all the black leaves were tossed into the cauldron, the tens of thousands of pill spirits swooped back into the heavenly tomb. As the spatial rift slowly closed, Xiao, sitting in front of the cauldron, let out a deep breath. Let's begin. Looking at the cauldron packed with countless black leaves, Xiao eyes narrowed slightly. Then, he fully activated the imperial flame cauldron, and in that instant, a terrifying burst of heat exploded into the air.